Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Play, Pause, Rewind, our very late 98th episode. Right off the bat, I want to apologize for the hiatus. My computer's power supply died, and it took the graphics card with it.
Oh
So it's in
no!
the shop, but we were able to get the backups of all of our podcast-related files off of that. So on my end, I'm recording from my laptop and recording audio onto my phone. Um, so if we end up having to just upload the raw Riverside file to YouTube and podcast platforms, apologies, but that's what we had to do to get an episode out. But enough of that. Niles, how have you been the last almost month since our previous episode?
Yeah, that's crazy to think how much has changed. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's been a roller coaster. I haven't had as many technical difficulties as you have in these past few weeks. My computer is running just fine, which is very nice. But our last episode was The Apprentice, and then we had an election, and then now here we are talking about another election. Isn't that odd?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, obviously we're both Americans, and our country just elected Donald Trump again. So that's bad. Um,
it's it's mind numbing and it's fucked. It's fucked. Let's just call it what it is. It's fucked.
yeah.
But how have you been, all things considered?
Um, well, pretty bad. I mean, there's all the technical issues. There's the fucking election. Work has been grinding me down a little bit, but yeah, I do just want to say, like, on the presidential election stuff, like, yeah, a lot of things went wrong. Democrats ran a shit campaign. We've talked about all the things they did wrong many times on this show. The result
Hmm.
almost seems like a foregone conclusion in retrospect. Um, but politics is every day. Um,
Yeah, it
you've
is.
got to, and like, honestly, like it's going to be really bad. The next couple years are going to be really, really bad. They're going to be worse than last time. But things you can do: organize in your community, um, look out for your fellow people, especially those from marginalized backgrounds, because this administration is coming for them before anybody else. Um, yeah, just organize, pay attention, and watch each other's backs. That's all we can really do at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Be a good person. Stand up where it's right. Um, and find the good in everything. And that's what we're gonna
Hmm.
do today. Talking about the Conclave this time around.
Yes. So Conclave, let me get back to my notes. Directed by Edward Berger and written by Peter Strahan, and an adaptation of the novel by Robert Harris. Conclave stars Rafe Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, and Lucian Msmati. And Conclave follows Cardinal Thomas Lawrence as he is tasked with overseeing the election process for the next pope as controversies surrounding the potential candidates begin to come to light. Niles, what are your initial non-spoilery thoughts on Conclave?
Man, this is a riveting examination of the Catholic Church, and how they elect the new pope. I personally find the whole structure of the Catholic Church fascinating. Like, I've watched so many videos online of just like how many cardinals are there and how many bishops are there, and like how does it all kind of go up to the tippy top? Like, what is the
Mm-hmm.
pyramid scheme here? But not calling the Catholic Church a pyramid scheme by any means, but
It's just a
you know,
hierarchy, man.
it's just a hierarchy. That's all. I just like, you know, having fun here. But I like this movie a lot. I do.
Hmm.
It's really hard for me to find anything wrong with it. Um, it's, and I'll say also that, as we dive in here, in case you don't already haven't already put two and two together by listening to this podcast, I do not personally believe in any religion. I think many religions are scams in a lot of ways, but I will always respect whatever your religious beliefs are. I don't care if you're Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Apostafarian, whatever you believe, you're free to believe, and I'm going to always say that until I die. And I
Hmm.
really enjoyed this movie because it delivers this very poignant insider perspective of the Catholic Church. And I think it challenges traditional viewpoints and it kind of forces the viewer to look at the church in kind of a new light. You know, I know that the church has been embroiled with like scandals for so many years with, you know, sexual abuse and
Hmm.
just really, really awful shit. And I feel like whenever you look at the church, it seems like that they're like decades behind in terms of policy and progressivism. Um, and I don't think that this movie necessarily paints the church in a bad light, but I don't think it predicts the clergy, the cardinals, everybody who's part of the church in a particularly favorable way.
Hmm.
But I really did enjoy this, and I think the overall aesthetics of this movie are just like impeccable. It is so cool to look at. Like they got like feels like they got all the minute details down really well of like the costuming, the set design, like everything like that. Like I want to do a little bit more research. I wish I had done a little bit more research about where they shot this movie and how they shot it and
Hmm.
all that stuff. But what are your initial thoughts, Dylan?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. I think it's a very tight, slow burn at the start, but a very tight thriller overall. And it goes in some directions that I genuinely did not expect. I also really enjoyed the music and thought the way it was
Mm-hmm.
used as like punctuation a lot of the time was really fun. And um, yeah, the only negative I really had, I'm not even sure if it was the movie or if it was our theater, and I've said this a couple times before, so maybe it is the theater. Maybe it's whenever we're in this screening room, but the projection just seemed dim. Um, there were
Yeah.
the lighting I did not think was bad, but in darker scenes I had a hard time seeing what was going on, and I think that was just the projector in our cinema, which is very unfortunate. Because otherwise I thought this was really a really fun movie led by a lot of strong performances, and it really enjoyed watching like this conflict unfolding of people within the church trying to decide the future direction of this very old and traditional institution. And because, like you said, in a lot of ways, the church is not the, you know, the leader in terms of progressivism and reform and stuff like that. And that varies from church to church as well. Like this movie is about the Catholic Church specifically. There are
Mm-hmm.
so many denominations of Christianity, and they all have sometimes very substantially different beliefs about how to operate within the world. But we'll talk more
Mm-hmm.
about the politics of this later on in spoilers. But I would say like very much a recommend from me. And it's only 2 hours. It kind of flies by. It's very
Yeah.
enjoyable, and the mystery unfolds in a very satisfying way and at almost the perfect pace, I would say. Do you have any other non-spoiler thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I got a few, and I will agree with you too. I would recommend this movie in a heartbeat to anybody, regardless of faith or your opinions on the church. I think this is really a cool, slow burn mystery as it goes
Hmm.
on. You just don't know who's going to win. It's like who's saying what, and all this information is being disclosed over time. It is worth it. It is
Hmm.
worth the price of admission. And just a few more things too, because of just my background too. I studied Italian in school, so it's always I just love watching movies that have Italian in it. It's such a beautiful language, and they speak some
Hmm.
Italian here, and they speak Latin, and there's a lot of different languages that are thrown in the mix here. So it feels just really cool, just
Hmm.
being in the center of all these different languages coming together. But I will also say that this movie it went in a different direction, kind of like what you were saying. It went in a different direction that I was expecting. Just based on the trailer, when I initially watched it, I was expecting more of this crisis of faith
Hmm.
narrative that just during the conclave, like during the selection process, that the leader Ray Fiennes would like kind of have this personal crisis of faith or something like that, and it would just like totally upend the whole election process. And I thought it was going to be a lot darker than where it ended. That is still kind of sprinkled throughout the film, this crisis of faith idea, but it wasn't
Hmm.
the central story. So I liked that, and I liked how it wasn't necessarily focusing on that. It had more to say about faith than that. And to your point too, it was fascinating to just see divisions within
Hmm.
the Catholic Church itself too. I think that churches or religions in general, they try to present this united front for the most
Mhm.
part. I would say, yes, there's a lot of different sects of Christianity, and even when you get into particular sects, it gets even more segmented there too. But it is just fascinating to see within this institution that's so long-standing, with such tradition, such history, and um, such a big following across the world, to see that there were people within it that were like, no, we need to go back to traditionalist ideas. And there were other people pushing for more progressive ideas, and some people who were more in the middle. It's like it is compelling to see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Spoilers?
yeah, let's dive into spoilers. Why not? Let's
All
get on
right,
into it
let's do it.
here.
So I think just one thing I want to start with because I thought it was funny. Like it was hilarious to me how often Lawrence highlighted how they're all supposed to be sequestered. And the way if you don't know
Yeah,
if you're listening and you don't know what the Pope selection process, the way it is supposed to work is all of the cardinals from around the world uh, convene in the Vatican. They go into the Sistine Chapel, and they are supposed to be cut off from all outside communication until they pick the Pope, and they just keep voting until they do it. And Lawrence is in charge of this whole operation this time. He's been selected by the late Pope to lead the conclave, and he's always like, "Yeah, I would love to ask and find out about this information, but as you know, we are sequestered. Now, if you'd please, like, go out and get this information for me and bring it back to me." It was, but it was so fucking funny, and he was like, he like the purpose of them being sequestered is, I think, in part so they are not making decisions based on information from the outside world. But that is expressly the reason he is getting information is so he can make more informed decisions.
yeah, right. He's like, no, I need to know about this person's
Hmm.
background, so I know that we're not voting the wrong person to be Pope. It's like,
Hmm.
that's kind of you're breaking the rules there, dude. You're just kind of breaking the rules a little bit.
The movie
Um,
also it kind of explores like he has some kind of valid reasons for breaking the rules in some of the instances. So it's like
absolutely.
we'll talk about the hypocrisy of it, but it also speaks to how sometimes like rules get more relaxed as time goes on and technology enters the picture, and also as we'll talk about later on, like there's a lot of political machinations happening within this conclave and determining the future of this institution. And so it's like there are valid reasons, at least from Lawrence's perspective, to be doing what he's doing. But I just think it's so comical how every
yeah.
time he's like, "Well, we're sequestered," he's like, "Oh, but the nun left the computer open for me, so I'm going to Google this."
Like, all right, you go for it, Lawrence. But
Mhm.
yeah, it is an interesting point too, because it's like, because there is a point in the film later on where there's like a bomb that goes off like
Mhm.
outside, and there's a terrorist attack or whatever in the city. They don't share all the details, but it's significant of a moment where it's like, okay, we do need to tell everybody about this. We need to. This is a key piece of information that everyone has a right to at this moment. So they break the. They don't necessarily break the sequestering, but because they're all still there. But yeah, it's
Mhm.
like this pivotal moment. So it's like, as like the leader of the conclave, how do you decide what information to share with people from the outside world at this moment? You could argue none, but
Mhm.
there's, I think, to your point, it is very funny how he's just like, the rules don't apply to me in this instance because I need to get this information. But I
But I'm
think
going to
it
remind
also,
you about the rules before I ask you to break them for me.
yeah, he's like, I'm aware of them, but I'm the exception in a way.
Mhm.
No one else can get outside information except for me, the guy leading the conclave. But it does kind of speak to this hypocrisy. There's these secrets also that are being slowly revealed throughout the film, and I think it speaks to um, the extent of rule bending,
Mhm.
secrets, hypocrisy within the church itself, and um, you know there were a lot revealed throughout this movie here, and just to name a few, we'll start off with the one that's probably the grossest, was Cardinal Ademi. Um,
Adeyemi.
Adeyemi, thank you.
Mhm.
He had a child with a 19-year-old girl when he was 30.
Mhm.
And he kind of swept it under the rug, and he's like, there's no way that you can actually like say that that's my kid. But he just kind of ignores this reality. He kind of ruins this girl's life for a little
Mhm.
bit, at least, and if not forever. But, he was going about like, oh, the rules don't apply to me
Yeah.
at this point. Like, he was about to be elected pope, and he's like, no, we can't, like, please don't make this one mistake that I made when I was
Mhm.
30, like, change the entire direction of my life. But it's like, dude, you slept with a 19-year-old when you were 30. That's like, oh, that's so gross, especially since you're in the church. Like,
Mhm.
that's just
Yeah,
that's
position of
just weird.
authority too, which is a big part of it. But
Yeah.
also you have the element, and he brings it up when talking to Lawrence. He's like, "Well, you said you wanted a pope who like has sinned and asked forgiveness and moved on, but it's like, yeah, and people shouldn't be held for their entire life, um, like on the hook for a mistake they made a long time ago. But that
Hmm.
doesn't mean you get to have everything you want and like have the most powerful position. It means you have to accept what you've done and how it was wrong and atone for it and all that stuff. And he very clearly was not interested in doing that. He
Hmm.
wanted to still be pope. Um, but I did like the element that even if Lawrence hadn't released like the information, or I guess he doesn't release any information. He doesn't need to because he's like, you'll never be pope. There are rumors now. That's all it
Hmm.
takes. Like we have to avoid controversy, and there is
Yep.
obviously something going on here. Everybody can see it. So too bad, buddy.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, he was just one example of like just someone trying to bend the rules to their favor in a way.
Hmm.
Like Tremblay, Cardinal Tremblay, played by John Lithgow. You know, he was dismissed by the late pope. He sought to kind of cover up his expulsion, like after the pope died, and he tried to manipulate the vote so he could gain the
Hmm.
papacy. Like he tried to do like subvert like co-ops in a way, like trying to like get himself into this position of power. And it's like, dude, you're a cardinal. Like
Yeah.
you have to see how wrong this is, like what you're doing.
Yeah, I
Like,
thought it was going to be revealed too that he killed the Pope, to cover up his
yeah.
expulsion and get the papacy for himself. I thought that's where we were headed. Um,
Mm, that
so
would have been
it was
interesting.
like, yeah, so he was a little bit less bad than I thought he was going to be, but he was
Yeah.
definitely corrupt.
Yeah, and he just like didn't really see the issue with it. And then we have Cardinal Tedesco as well, who is, you know, the staunch Italian who wanted to bring Rome back into the picture, bring
Hmm.
it back to like the traditionalist values. He preached of war against Catholicism. He wanted to fight back, and it's like he's just like directly contradicting the message of the church, the message of Jesus, who is like,
Hmm.
turn the other cheek. You
Love
unite
thy
people
neighbor.
through, yeah, love thy neighbor, literally. Like, love and kindness unite people, not violence and hate. Like, we are not
Hmm.
the church that's gonna go on these crusades. Like, that's not who we are anymore.
Yeah,
Uh, and man,
anymore.
he
Yes.
was exactly anymore. We've changed for the better. But man, Tedesco was that guy sucked.
Yeah, he was like Omega racist at the end there, yelling about
Yeah.
Muslims and shit. It was pretty bad. But
Hmm.
I think this character and his bigotry kind of plays into um and what you highlight about like Jesus turning the other cheek and uniting people through love and stuff. It highlights a very real contradiction that I think we see today, especially in America, with a lot of the more conservative evangelical base of voters. It's like they don't live by any of the values espoused by Christianity, especially the teachings of Jesus. And like, I am not a religious person anymore, but I was raised Christian. I define myself now as an apathetic agnostic. I don't really know what happens after I die. I don't particularly care. I'll find out when I get there. For now, there's
I
plenty
like
of
that.
stuff to worry about in the present world that we can do. But I think I like try to live my life in accordance with a lot of those like actual values, like caring for the people around you, those less fortunate, all of that stuff that the entire conservative wing of our society, including the most vocal Christians on the right, have abandoned all of that. They think it's
Mm-hmm.
communism and gay.
Yeah.
And they don't like either
Yep.
of those things. So
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's very interesting, and this character kind of reminds me of that a little bit too. It's like if you pay attention to the tenets of this religion, what they're really about, bigotry has no place. And yet so many,
Mm-hmm.
and this is not unique to Christianity, this is religious fundamentalists across the board, right? Religious fundamentalists use their faith as a shield for their own bigotry. It's not actually about the belief system in any way. It's just they are bigots and need to defend themselves from people justifiably calling them out for that. And
Yeah.
yeah.
It's you're 100% right in my opinion, and yeah, you're totally right because there's so many people today that just like literally, like we were saying, love thy neighbor, and they're just like,
Hmm.
no, we gotta deport our neighbor. He's an illegal.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, if you cared about the tenets of your religion, you would not care about their immigration status. But whatever. Let's not get into that today.
Yeah.
Um,
But
but
yeah,
one of the other things
it's
I
just
was
interesting to me. But
oh, absolutely. And one of the other kind of secrets that
hmm
comes out here is that the former pope, he appointed this cardinal of Kabul in Afghanistan,
hmm
which is a region that you wouldn't really think about. Yeah, absolutely, with like Catholicism, I think. But he appoints him, and he doesn't really disclose this information. It's very in secret, which is
hmm
odd. And then all of a sudden, this cardinal is showing up to vote on these issues, and it's like, okay, where is this coming from? And like, yeah, if I was a cardinal in that moment, I'd be like, well, this is odd. Why is he here exactly? And it's like, why was this kept a secret? Like that was one of those moments that maybe they did explain it, and I'm not really remembering the reasons why.
Yeah, well, they
Um,
kind of address it because I think it was more for his safety more than anything because he does these
yeah,
ministries in
right.
places that would be more dangerous for a Catholic mission, or they still called that, I don't know,
Yeah, I
to
think so.
establish themselves. So I think that was the main reason behind it. But it does add an air of mystery to the film when he first shows up. It's like, oh my God, what the fuck is gonna happen? Because you have like the established factions from the start. You kind of know who's on whose team from the beginning, and then this guy shows up and it kind of throws a wrench in everything. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and going back to the thing about the sequestering, I just think was an interesting element to watch dramatically was like Lawrence trying to balance um, the tradition of being sequestered with trying to make sure someone who isn't like awful and corrupt gets the papacy. So it's sort of a microcosm of the broader political conflict going on within the conclave of just like, okay, do I fully adhere to tradition here, or do I move in a more modern liberal direction, maybe bend the rules of
Mm-hmm.
tradition a little bit, but in an effort to do the right thing. And I think you're sort of seeing the political conflict play out within Lawrence as he's trying to direct the conclave. But that does
Yeah,
dovetail us into the politics. And the coalition building, I thought, was fascinating to watch. It is
yeah,
essentially a war between liberals and conservatives trying to decide the future direction of the church. And as both of us are not religious people, and we are certainly not
mm-hmm.
Catholic, this whole conflict I could see feeling like antiquated, and is to an extent. Even like the liberals are just like, oh yeah, we're fine with homosexuals. It's like, okay, yeah, we're a little bit beyond just being fine with them in this
Mm-hmm.
day and age, hopefully. But I actually do agree with Aldo, Stanley Tucci's character, on the severity of what happens here, the decision, because so like the Catholic world is fucking enormous, right? There's so many people
Mm-hmm.
who adhere to this faith, and like to them, what the church dictates is probably extremely important in how they live their day to day life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like the Pope is meant to be. I looked this up. I was misunderstanding. I thought the Pope like spoke for God in a way. Apparently, that is not the case. But the Pope is meant to be a representation of Christ on earth. So
Mm.
the shit he says is kind of treated with a lot of weight, right? If you're
Mm-hmm.
meant to be representing Christ. So, um, but yeah.
Well, yeah, you're totally right because there's so many people around the world who are fanatical about the Pope, about Catholicism, and they, yeah, follow what the church says. And if the leader of the church is going to all of a sudden backtrack and say, no, actually, homosexuals are not okay, that's gonna
Hmm.
be that's gonna change a lot of people's perspectives, and it's gonna make a lot of people unsafe. It's gonna make a lot of
Hmm.
people just like fear for their lives. And yeah, it is an insane decision, but I totally agree. Like the way that they were building coalitions in this
Hmm.
movie, like we didn't really see um what's the other guy's name?
Tedesco.
Uh, Tedesco. Yeah, we didn't really see the coalition being built around him. It was more about like Lawrence and Aldo and kind of the more progressives of the
Yeah.
church, and like how that they were trying to play their cards the right way, because they're like, well, we need a certain amount of votes to
Hmm.
get elected, and Aldo's our best candidate. Like everyone likes Aldo, and they're just like trying to like get together on like policy, like what do we do, and we're canvassing for you. Like it is like
Uh-huh.
playing politics literally in the church. It was really cool to watch.
Yeah, and I did like that one scene where they're like, oh, maybe we don't say anything about women on this, and Aldo's like, no, if you're gonna fucking canvass for me, didn't see he didn't curse, he's a cardinal, but he's like, if you're gonna canvass for me, just say what I actually believe. Like, I don't lie on my behalf. Just say the shit that I believe in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but they are so conniving in a lot of ways. Um,
Yes.
but less so than I thought they were gonna be, honestly, except for Tremblay. Tremblay is a little bit conniving with his bribery and everything, but um, I thought it was gonna be more backstabbing than there actually was. It was really more just about like the effort. It was more a coalition building effort, and navigating the difficulties of building a coalition when some people within your supposed coalition are voting for the wrong person and you can't figure out who they are.
Well, yeah, it's like how do you yeah, when all the votes are kept a secret and all this stuff, there's so much
Hmm.
anonymity. But yeah, I like how they could have been shadier, but they were shady cardinals, man. Like they were,
Hmm.
they would greet each other so amicably. They're like, "Oh, it's so nice to see you. Thanks for coming. It's like it's been forever." And then, like as soon as they walk away, they're just like, "Oh, I can't stand that man. What an asshole. What an
Yeah.
ignoramus." It's like it felt like I was watching, like at least a lot of like comparisons I saw online was like Drag Race Untucked.
Hmm.
Like where it's like this subsidiary, it's like a sideshow to the main RuPaul's Drag Race show, where it's just like queens just being bitchy at each other and being like, "So when did
Hmm.
you say that shady comment about me and my makeup at this time in the show?" And like they get into a petty little fight. And there's alcohol involved, so everyone's just
Hmm.
drunk and being mean to each other, and there's all these emotions. It was just so shady, and I
Yeah.
I could have even loved a little bit more shade, but for the church, I liked this level of shade.
Hmm. Yeah, and it was interesting to me too about how little of it was actually about who was the most holy or whatever. It was political and about avoiding further scandal. It was
Yeah, good point.
it because it is functionally for people's lives, the church is a political institution. and the effect they will have is more as a political body
Mm.
than um, like who is the closest to God at the head of the church, right? It was about
Yeah.
who will lead the followers of the church in which direction. And also the scandal part was a big part of it. Like we have two candidates who are in the running to win, lose out because of scandal, and we know the long history of scandal within the Catholic Church. Um, so it like that all makes total sense to me. But I really
Yeah.
enjoyed. Oh, go for it.
No, I think that's a really good observation, and I didn't even really think about that. And it makes me think. I would assume that popes in the past. I could be
Hmm.
very wrong here because I actually do not know, but I would assume that popes in the past, like 1500s or whatever, 1600s, I would assume that they would probably be, yeah, more of a debate about like, oh, what good things have you done in your life to make you qualified to be pope, rather than what are you going to do as pope. I feel like it'll be more conversations about like, oh yes, I went and I did this health mission in this country, and then I did this, like I washed the feet of the poor kind of vibe, rather than, oh, what policies will you enact, that
Hmm.
kind of thing. I could be very wrong, but I feel like my gut tells me that's how it used to be.
That might you might be right, or it might just have been how they presented it. But I
Yeah.
do know that like in like the Middle Ages, around the era of the Crusades, especially, like the Pope was a political position. Like the
Hmm.
Pope sent people to war.
Yeah, that's true, he did. So yeah,
um,
maybe I'm talking out of my ass here.
there was that time too that there were three popes, I think. Um,
Oh man.
yeah, it was a shit show at various points in time. I don't remember the exact history about that, but it is actually a really fascinating period. I think there was a big schism after or before that too. I don't remember the timeline on the whole thing. I learned about this in like AP European history class in high school. It's been a long time since I
Come on,
since
Dylan. What
then.
are those dates?
Yeah,
You got to
but
know
I
the
guess
dates.
the schism stuff, which is a big part of the church's history, right? I guess
Hmm.
that kind of does tie into the political conflict a little bit too, because I could see from the like conservative end of this conflict, I could see the perspective being like, well, okay, if we stray too far away from like this vision of what we are, then like we're just becoming a new church and there might as well
Hmm.
be a schism again or something like that. But
Yeah.
um I don't know. We don't really get inside those characters' head a whole lot. They are mostly antagonists, and we focus a lot of our time on the personal relationship between uh, Cardinal Lawrence and Aldo Benelli or Bellini, Aldo
Bellini.
Bellini. Um, and I found Aldo to be a really that's Stanley Tucci's character. I found him to be really, really interesting because when the chips are down, he is willing to put his cause of forwarding a more liberal agenda above any of his own ambitions. And like, despite multiple times claiming he has no desire for the papacy, he kind of admits later on, it's like, of course, I've thought about it, and yeah, I kind of want it. But at the end of the day, he's willing to like put the cause first. And at first, when Lawrence is like accidentally leeching votes away from him, being a spoiler candidate, he reacts with resentment towards Lawrence, but then he
Yeah.
apologizes on his own volition and then puts his support behind him when it becomes clear he has the best shot. And I really like that moment where he's just like, look, it's between you two. I support you. What do you want your Pope name to be? I don't know. I just thought it
Hmm.
was a very sweet moment between friends towards the end there. Um, but yeah, their
Yeah,
relationship really.
they had a great relationship. Yeah, I think that was one of a core piece of the film, was how they were interacting and how they saw each
Mhm.
other. But I will also say that I really appreciated um, Lawrence's character. He was such a, I think he's a great protagonist, and Ray Fiennes did a great job with him. But
Mhm.
I also liked that this character was, he acknowledged his own crisis of faith in
Mhm.
himself. Like he realize, like, oh yeah, I was trying to get out of the like, I was asking the Pope, like the last Pope, like, can I get out of this role as a cardinal here
Hmm.
at the Vatican? And he was like,
Yeah.
no. But his whole reason was because he just like is struggling with prayer, he's struggling with faith. And as a person, speaking personally here, as a person without faith in
Hmm.
God, it seems to me that it's an impossible task to maintain your faith throughout life, especially when you're in this role, like this role within um, the Catholic Church, and especially within our modern era. I feel like there's going to be a lot of moments where you're going to experience doubt, where
Hmm.
the evidence is going to be stacked against you, and you're going to be like, well, how can my faith outweigh what I'm seeing here and what other people are saying? And it is refreshing to see people high in the church, this depiction of people high in the church questioning their faith a little bit and recognizing also that they're not the right person for the job. I feel like that
Yeah.
there's people like that who will still be like, yep, I can do it. I can be the Pope, even if I don't fully believe in everything.
Hmm.
I thought that was a very strong character trait.
Yeah. And I think people of faith in general do have, like I don't think they ever fully. Well, some people do, but I think like I think it goes in waves, right? Like there will be
Yeah.
moments where they have less faith, maybe still believe in God the entire time, but have less
Mm-hmm.
affection or desire to engage with that. And for me, just speaking from personal experience, I don't like to say I lost faith necessarily. I prefer to say I just don't have it. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason for that I think is very important, because I would operate with it differently if I felt I lost faith. I feel that as I grew up, it just kind of went away, and I
Mm-hmm.
stopped believing in that stuff. But I don't feel that there's anything missing. I don't feel a void that I need to seek something out to rekindle within myself. And I think that's the difference between what I experienced as I grew up and someone who lost faith. I would say someone who lost faith, they are probably looking for something. And if a
Mm-hmm.
return to religion can help them find that, that is the right path for that individual. Um, just I think about that a lot sometimes, and I wanted to put it in here because it kind of makes sense. But yeah, crises of
I
faith.
like it.
Um, even as a non-religious person, are immensely dramatically interesting in stories for me. Like across the board, I love a movie about someone who just like lost their fucking faith and is trying to get it
Mm-hmm.
back. It's very interesting and compelling to watch.
I agree. I agree.
But
Those are good stories. They're great.
yeah, but we have a big
Well,
plot twist in this movie, and
yeah.
I think it really it's pretty awesome. So they're the cardinal we mentioned earlier on, who had a ministry in Kabul, um, Cardinal Benitez. It
Mm-hmm.
turns out so we get in the plot point introduced about halfway through that he was going to go have a medical procedure, and they're like, okay, no, 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 it's fine. He didn't actually go. Don't worry about it. And they were thinking it was going to be like, oh God, we're going to nominate this guy as Pope, and then he's going to have like a terminal illness and die, and we're going to have to do this whole thing again. But no, it turns out that um, he's intersex, and the operation was to remove the um, ovaries and uterus from his body. He decided not to get the operation, so he remains intersex. And for those viewers or listeners who do not know, intersex, I don't know how often it happens, but sometimes babies are born with guy parts and girl parts. And usually, what ends up happening, at least in America, is the doctor just kind of fucking picks one or the other, and
Mm-hmm.
has the child grow up that way. And this is an important distinction. This is not the same as being transgender. Gender is a social construct about your identity. Intersex is about biology. So body parts versus gender identity, two different things.
Mm-hmm.
But I found this twist fascinating. What did you
Me
think
too.
about it?
Yeah, it is such a great twist at the end because you don't really see it coming, and then all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden it comes out of the left field and it hits you, and you're like, "Whoa!" Because from one perspective, the church, because this guy gets elected pope, and then that's when this
Mm-hmm.
information comes out. That they figure out
Yep.
that yeah, he's intersex. But from one perspective, the church just elected a very fair, just, and peaceful man to lead the church.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they elected a great person to lead the church. He's the best fit for the job. And then from another perspective, if you're looking at it from another angle, a biological woman was elected to be pope. That's the argument that you can make in a way,
Mm-hmm.
because he has those parts.
Maybe. I don't
Yes,
know.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I don't. Or someone with traits of a biological woman, I guess, would be the better way to say that. I just don't
yes,
want to.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Um, I'm
That's
actually not
fair.
sure how you're supposed to discuss that, so that's on us. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but it
I agree.
yeah because it raises this interesting, I think, point. This kind of like existential moment for the church in a way, and
Mm-hmm.
for Ray Fiennes' character too, because he's like, well, we just elected you pope, but if this ever comes out, it could really probably harm the the image of the church, if in one way, or it could even help improve it. And you know, they still keep him as the pope, and I think the last shot of the movie is you just hear the cheers like of everybody, like they're like, "Oh, it's the new pope!" Everyone's going crazy,
Yeah.
and it's great, and it's a very powerful moment in this
Mm-hmm.
movie. You know?
Yeah, well, and I think it's very powerful because our main characters are fighting for the cause of moving the church forward in a more liberal direction. And in just by voting for the candidate who is the most deserving, ultimately, they end up succeeding in a way even greater than they thought they did. Like, yeah, it will probably eventually come out that Benitez is intersex. And in an institution that still has women relegated to not subservient but lower ranking roles, like women cannot be,
Yeah,
I think Catholic women can be priests now, maybe.
I think they
um
made that change. Yes,
yeah, but they can't be cardinals. So I think, and
they
I
can't
don't
be
know if they can be
bishops.
bishops either. Okay, so
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
think
they
they
can,
can.
maybe they can be priests and that's it, which is like the lowest rank. um
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so it's like, I'm trying to make sure we talk about it in the right way, but it is like incorporating the biology of women into the highest ranking office of this institution that historically has kept women out of real positions of power. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and that's like something that I kept thinking about through this movie too, because it's a very male-dominated movie,
mhm,
except for a handful of women who are basically, you know, sisters, nuns in the background who are making or the food for the cardinals and making sure
oh, the
everything's
pasta
spick and
looks so
span.
good.
Yeah, I mean, you got it. You know that pasta was delicious, but like,
Hmm.
uh, just because they were always kind of there in the background, um, it's just always been kind of this thing in my head of like something that bothers me about the church is the role of females in the church.
Hmm.
You know, in this day and age, to me, it's really hard to understand what would motivate a woman to become a nun, to join this order, because they have little to no voice within the church. Up until recently, they could not join the priesthood. They're given little agency within the institution. They can't become cardinals or bishops. Like for so many years, they really have just been playing second fiddle to the priests and
Hmm.
just being kind of these people in the background. And I think this revelation about the new pope kind of begs this question of why does it matter whether you were assigned male or female at birth? Why can't a female do everything that a male can do? Like why was the priesthood male only for so long? Like I think these are very
Yeah.
important and powerful questions, and I think this revelation really brings that to the forefront here, and
Hmm.
it's very powerful in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's very meaningful that the last shot of the film are those three women, leaving to go do whatever they're going to do during the day.
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of signals a brighter future for the church, right? They've crossed a new threshold, albeit unintentionally, but yeah. But I did think, where did the part go? I thought something Benitez said was very powerful to me, because he changes his mind. He doesn't decide to go do the operation that would remove the ovaries and uterus. And the reason he gave was, this is how God made me. Why would I change that? And this is tangential because gender and sex are not the same thing. I'm not trying to say they are. But I think it's actually a really solid religious argument in favor of trans rights. And
Mm-hmm.
gender transition, and that might seem contradictory for a second, but if a religious argument is one you need in your personal life, here it is. God made these people trans. He chose them to walk that path and have those experiences. Who are you to tell them otherwise? There we go.
Yep.
If you believe in a God and a person you know or you are trans, then if you believe God made you that way. He
Mm-hmm.
wanted you to experience this. Live your life.
Yeah,
There it
exactly.
is. It's that simple.
Easy, easy. And I did Google around, like, did a little research before we hopped on this show,
Mm-hmm.
because there has been a little bit of backlash, like Catholic backlash to this film because of this twist.
Yeah.
Um, in addition to just like kind of how I think just the church has been depicted in general with all these different
Mm-hmm.
scandals being shown. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's probably not as many scandals, but who knows? Um, because
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen some
It's a
people.
dramatic movie. It's supposed to be about the drama.
Exactly. Like some things are going to be exaggerated. Like there's a bomb that goes off and breaks a window. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this is exaggerated. Um, but then like I've seen some people online calling this like sacrilegious in a way, and some people are calling for a boycott, like Ben Shapiro, which is America's favorite wet blanket.
Can we talk about
He
how much of a bitch Ben Shapiro is in favor of Christianity? That motherfucker is not Christian. He's
Oh yeah.
Jewish. But he acts like a
Mm-hmm.
fucking evangelical because what's more important to him is reactionary conservatism. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's anti-abortion when his religion allows for abortion. Judaism allows for abortion.
Mm-hmm. God,
God,
he's
Ben Shapiro, the
ridiculous.
most pathetic man.
Yes, yes, the most pathetic man, and it's or one of the most pathetic for sure.
Yeah,
And
he's up there, top
he's up
10.
there with a lot of other guys. It's but it's strange in my opinion, from my perspective. I feel like it's some of this backlash isn't merited,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think that this film necessarily is hypercritical of the church. I think it's
Oh,
hopeful for the
yeah,
church.
incredibly so.
I think it's very nuanced in its depiction here, because like all the cardinals, whether they have these political beliefs or not, or ideas about where the church should go, they're all devoted to God in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like everyone in this film, like whoever was on screen, they were aware of the scandals and they were aware of
Mm-hmm.
the controversies that have plagued the church. And I think the creators of this film were aware of that as well, that the church is trying to change its image, I think, and it's been trying for many, many years now. And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the characters too, especially the more progressive ones, were like Aldo and Lawrence. They were well aware of the global cultural climate, and
Mm-hmm.
they showed openness to the trends of today and the changes of
Yes.
society, like LGBTQ rights, divorce. Like
Which
I
is
think
why
it's
people like Ben Shapiro are so upset about the movie, not because it's critical of the church, but because
right.
it insinuates that maybe being gay is not bad. That's the
Mm-hmm.
problem someone like Ben Shapiro has with a movie like this, is that it is open and accepting, and Ben Shapiro is not.
Yes.
uh,
Yeah. He wants
yeah,
to control and manipulate people, and it's like, okay, dude, you're gonna be left in the waste of history.
yeah, of course. He's gonna be left behind and alone, which is for the best for everybody. But I do think, speaking of the explosion in the film, and I think the part of the church, the chapel that explodes, is the same part where they're having like that remodel earlier. Um, that Lawrence is like stressed about. It's like, come on, get out. We gotta start the conclave.
Yeah, yeah,
But but think about when does the bomb go off? What's happening in the story when the bomb goes off?
yeah. They're like right in the middle of like an election. Like they're about to like start casting ballots for like the fifth one. I can't
Lawrence,
remember.
yeah, but it's all positioned to where Lawrence is going to win. He's voted for
Right.
himself for the first time, and then the explosion happens almost like it's divine intervention because he was not the right
Yeah.
person. Benitez was the right person, and God stepped in to make sure that they had this reprieve to reevaluate
Yeah.
the situation and for Benitez to have his moment. Um, and I think like all of the like intersex stuff aside, I think it's just Benitez was the most deserving of the position of all the people there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he put in the work for the faith that like to a degree that none of the rest of them did. He brought it to more dangerous places, and like ventured out and went to multiple places as well, where a lot of them were just like in their little area. Especially
Mm-hmm.
Tedesco, who's just like, yeah, I'm in Italy because I'm Italian and I'm gonna stay here. Um, Benitez did the fucking work, and he was the most deserving and the most worthy. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like his chosen name, Innocence. You know, his
hmm
that was his chosen name as Pope, and I think that's perfect um, for him. And I think for what for for what he stands for and what you want in a leader
hmm
too. I don't think that you want a leader that's corrupted by whatever, his past decisions, his history, whatever. Like yeah, you do want someone who has sinned and has asked for forgiveness and has found a way to move on and accept what they've done.
hmm
But his you also want someone who isn't like looking for reasons to throw stones. You want someone who's there to just be like, yes, we're accepting, we're loving, and I'm going to unite us together. I think he chose the perfect name.
Yeah. It was great. But yeah, do you wanna talk about this element a little bit more, or do you want to move on to our closing little
Yeah, we
thing?
can move on.
Okay. Yeah, I want to close out by just talking about Lawrence's homily from the beginning of the conclave because I think it just really stuck with me throughout the film, and I think it's a really nice um, idea overall, like how he wants a pope who sins, asks for forgiveness, and moves forward, but also a pope who doubts. One, I really liked his thought about how there can be no faith without doubt, and how because without doubt there's no mystery, and
Mm-hmm.
and I mean no disrespect to religious people here, but I think a big part of faith is maintaining one's belief in the absence of any evidence. Um,
Yeah.
Faith is, and that doesn't even have to be religious in nature. It could just be like, faith that tomorrow will be better. Today, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, in our current climate that we're in right now, post election, like we're headed for some very very dark days. But we can still have faith that we will get through it and that we will have better days ahead. It doesn't look like that right now, but we can make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, but like maintaining belief in the absence of evidence, right? And like as such, any person would have at least moments of doubt, right? So Lawrence mentioning that this is not only a reality but a desirable trait for the future pope, I found interesting because it's an acknowledgement that we all will have moments like this, even our leader should.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I found specifically um, him using the word doubt very intriguing because um, to me, biblically, that invokes a very specific character, Doubting Thomas. This is from the New Testament. It's the story of Jesus' death and resurrection in the
Mm-hmm.
Bible. When Jesus is resurrected, I think it's fucking Peter who sees him first. I don't remember. It's been a long time. Doesn't matter. But they're like, all the disciples believe Jesus is back, except for
Yeah.
Thomas. He
Mm-hmm.
doubts. And he only believes it once he can feel the nail holes on Jesus's hands. I don't remember enough about the story to make a connection greater than that, but I thought just the choice of the word doubt, it has to be a deliberate indication of this story because, I mean, the guy is literally called Doubting Thomas. That's his fucking name that
Yeah,
he's
for
remembered
real.
as in the scripture. But I just thought
Well,
that was interesting to invoke.
well, well, Lawrence, I think like during that homily too, he has like a point where he's like, yeah, even Jesus had like
Hmm.
doubt towards the
Yeah.
end. Like on his fifth day on the cross, he shouted, he was like
Why
crying,
have you
like, oh
forsaken me?
yeah, why have you forsaken me? And I think that is powerful, and it's a good reminder that yeah, like doubt will happen,
Hmm.
and you just need to find your way through it. You need to chart your path and you know hold on to that faith that you'll get there.
Hmm.
And I think that is powerful, and
Yeah.
I, it's a good homily, especially in this context of we have this new pope. We'll see where things go
Hmm.
for the church and for the rest of the world. Whether the revelation comes out about his intersex or whatever. It's
Yeah.
you have to have faith that things will go the right way. And
Hmm.
I agree. It was a powerful homily.
Yeah. Well, and on Jesus having doubt too, like it goes, there's another part of the story too. It's like right before he gets betrayed, when he's like praying in the garden or whatever. Like, if I remember correctly, like part of the prayer is him basically asking God, his dad, like, hey, can I not die? Like I don't really want to
Mm-hmm.
die because he's like a 33-year-old guy or something. Like he's not that old. And I think that's an important part of both like the biblical side of the story, but also the historical side. It's like he was just a human being. Whether or not you
Mm-hmm.
believe he's the son of God is the religious side of it. But like he was just a kind of like he was just a young man, he was barely older than
Yeah.
us, and he fucking died for
Exactly.
what he believed in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I guess let's. Any final thoughts, recommendations? What do you think?
No, but I mean, would I recommend the Conclave? Yes. Hell,
Hmm.
heck yes, I would. Uh, whether you're critical of the church, or you're a devout follower, or you're worried that the film is sacrilegious, I think once you watch the film, you'll have plenty
Hmm.
to think about when you exit and you're driving home. And yeah, I would recommend it. What about you?
I'd recommend it as well. I think it was really cool, and I don't like. Obviously, we're both coming at this from the perspective of non-religious people, but I don't think it was in any way disrespectful to religion or the institution of the church, which are two
Mm-hmm.
separate things. It's a very good movie. Strong performances, good production design, um,
Yeah.
everything. Like it was really, really enjoyable. But with that, let's transition into our next section, other stuff. Niles,
Yay!
what have you been up to the last month or so?
Oh man, whole lots of things. Watching new, watching old. Watching the Penguin. Watching the Penguin. It's a blast.
Hmm.
It's definitely a high caliber show. I'm really enjoying it, and coming off of The Sopranos, just about 6 months ago, finishing that whole series. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like The Sopranos, but better, but better. I don't.
Oh, people are gonna get
I,
so mad at you for saying that.
I know. It's better in certain ways. It's
Okay.
not like because like when you see Oz, it's like man, that's just like James Gandolfini, but different, so different. But yeah, it's better is the wrong word for me to use there. Well, we're gonna have a
Hmm.
whole episode on the Penguin later down the line, so
Yep.
I'll save a lot of my thoughts for that there. Um, but yeah, been watching Agatha all along. I still gotta finish it, but I'm
Hmm.
very pleasantly surprised with this show. I think it's pretty high caliber for the MCU, especially with some of the lower tier things that they've put out within the past few years, I think this one is standing out for me as a good one overall.
Yeah.
And I'm continuing my rewatch of Game of Thrones. We're just into season 3 now, and man, it's so good. I forgot how good this show is. It's
There's a Game of Thrones connection to Conclave, actually.
what
Cardinal
is that?
Adeyemi, the actor who plays Cardinal Adeyemi, is Salador San, Sir Davos's pirate friend.
Right. Oh my god. I knew I recognized him from
Yeah,
somewhere.
I was looking it up earlier, like, where the fuck have I seen this guy?
Wow, he is so good.
hmm
Yeah, it is. It is like right now. I'm just kind of watching this slow train wreck towards the end of season 3. That is, I don't want to
Oh.
spoil it for anybody, but Robb Stark and what ends up there. It's like you just see all the cues, and man,
hmm
I didn't realize, but like from like the moment that that his love interest is introduced for the first time, like
Yeah.
Bruce Bolton is in every scene that they're in together. Every
Oh.
scene. I shit you not. He is there at the start. He's there like every time. And it's like, wow, they really laid that on thick there, that he
hmm
was going to be the one to do it.
Yeah.
That was one of my newer observations from it.
hmm
Um,
Yeah.
I
Well,
also,
that's the great thing about George R. R. Martin's writing, and it translates to the show as well. It's like the character deaths in the moment, like on first viewing, it's like, oh my God, it's so shocking it came out of nowhere. But it's like, no, it's just a result of the fuck ups that the characters made. Like
mm-hmm,
like Ned, that was so
yes,
shocking when everybody first saw it. But if you like on even just first rewatch, you're like, oh, he's totally ill-equipped for this environment, and he's making all the wrong choices because
mm-hmm,
in that, like, that's why the Ned Stark death is so shocking, is because it's like it's a tutorial. It's a tutorial for this story. It's like, oh, you're used to the good guys overcoming the odds and then, maintaining their principles and emerging from the lion's den. Well, not always.
mm-hmm,
sometimes
yeah,
sometimes there are too many lions.
mm-hmm, yeah, it's brutal.
hmm
I also went back and rewatched a classic from our college years, 22 Jump Street, over the weekend. Lots of it
Nice.
holds up, I would say. There's some
hmm
parts that I'm like, oh wow, that's the joke here is that they're insinuating they're gay, or like there's like some transphobic humor at a certain point. I'm like,
Oh, is there transphobic
this
here? I don't remember that.
well, there's that character from the first movie who gets his dick shot off, and they
Oh
go visit
yeah.
him in the prison, and
Oh yes, Dave Franco's
it's like
character.
it's like a whole joke about like, oh yeah, like I got a vagina now, and
Uh-huh.
it's like those moments are cringe. And then
Yeah.
also one point that really stood out to us was that Jonah Hill's character in this movie is like, I'd say at least 30 years old, something like that.
hmm
And he's going back to college, and he hooks up with the captain's daughter, who's probably about 19,
Yeah.
which
I mean, it's
isn't.
better than the first movie where he has a love interest in Brie Larson's character who's supposed to be in high school. So,
Yeah, I don't remember that.
yeah.
But anyways,
I
it's
think they're
there's
like
still some good.
seniors, so they at least had the foresight to make them of age, but it's still gross.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah.
yeah. So, some parts of it hold up well, some not as much. But yeah, still love that. And then I didn't really watch as much of this show, just kind of like over the shoulder of my partner. But this show called
hmm
Bodkin,
Yeah.
which is this. Actually, it's a show about a podcaster who goes to
What?
um, Ireland. He's like a true crime podcaster. It's Will Forte,
hmm
and he goes to Ireland, and it's just like he's investigating this murder or like this disappearing bodies that happened like years and
Yeah.
years ago. And it's like it was interesting. It's yeah, I didn't really watch it that much, so I don't know why I added it to the list, but kind of watched it. And then I've been playing Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom on my Switch, and
Nice.
it's a lot of fun. It's a little simple, but it's kind of the perfect mix between Breath of the Wild and like a little like
Link to the
Nintendo
Past.
like yeah, exactly, yeah. Link to the Past. But that's it for me. What about you, Dylan? What have you been up to?
Quite a bit, actually. I've been reading Saga. I read the first 5 volumes. So those are all of the volumes that I currently own. So I'm gonna take a little break from that, and I'll, get the next 5 and then read them
Mm-hmm.
again in that chunk.
Cool.
But man, Saga is so fucking good. It's incredible. I would recommend it to like everybody. Um,
Mm.
and like you, I've watched Agatha all along. Honestly, very pleasantly surprised. I had zero interest in this show at all. I didn't really care. Um, but it surprised me. It was a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and the fucking song they sing like throughout the whole season, the Witch's Road song, is kind of a
Mm.
banger, and it just pops into my head every once in a while because it's just kind of good. Um, I
Yeah, cool.
also I also finished watching the most recent season of Only Murders in the Building. Consistently good show. Always enjoy it when it comes back, which is great. And
Nice.
yeah, and reading this week I started reading The Witcher: Sword of Destiny, which is another short story collection of Witcher stories about Geralt of Rivia, our monster hunting pal. The one I'm reading right now is actually, I think it was adapted as one of the episodes in season 1, where
Okay.
they're like on a dragon hunt. So I remember that. I remember liking that episode, and I
Yeah, that was a
like
cool
the
one.
story so well. Um, I also watched Ready or Not, starring Samara Weaving, and it is basically she marries into this very very wealthy family who built their fortune um, selling board games. But it
Mm-hmm.
turns out that they're a little bit of a cult, and they start hunting her down to kill her and sacrifice her, and she has to
Ooh, okay.
survive and beat the family. It's really it's
Interesting.
very fun. I would recommend it.
Okay.
Um, I also watched a documentary called Israelism, which is about how the state of Israel and Zionist actors in America work very, very hard to inject patriotic loyalty to the state of Israel into the education system
Mm.
for young American Jews to try to basically indoctrinate them into loyalty for this, fascist apartheid state halfway across the world. And it includes the birthright trip, which is when
Mm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
Jewish teenagers get an all expenses paid, like I think months long trip sometimes to Israel. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole thing, and the documentary follows a couple people who are now adults who broke out of this and are
Oh.
now anti-Israel activists. It's a very good film. It's very informative. A lot of the stuff I knew already, but I really didn't know how comprehensive the propaganda effort is and how
Mm-hmm.
young they start doing it. It's like, I mean, it's not dissimilar to how our elementary schools in America are so ingrained with like American patriotism. Like it's a very similar thing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and it really shines a light on why, like, how in the face of like the atrocities we're seeing now, um, people who are like otherwise progressive or liberal still like find themselves defending it because they've spent their whole lives, being brought up thinking this is like a good bastion of like freedom, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's very devastating, but I think an important watch. It's on YouTube for free too, but it is
Yeah, I think
a
I'm gonna
film.
watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also watched Anna Kendrick's directorial debut, Woman of the Hour, and it is based on a true story. This
Mm-hmm.
woman went on a show called The Dating Game, where there are like three contestants. It's like a reality TV show, and the
Right, right.
contestant that she matched with was a very prolific serial killer. And in real life, I think she just kind of like got kind of bad vibes on the first date and didn't see him again. And they sort of tie that in with this serial killer's other murders and make it into a narrative piece. I thought it was pretty solid. I liked it.
Hmm.
And Anna Kendrick, I think, donated all of her money she made from it to help victims of something. I should have looked it up. But
Hell
she
yeah.
felt like gross getting money for this
Yeah,
story
I
about
would
this guy
too.
who killed like so many people. If you look him up,
Yeah.
he hit like a shitload of people. um,
Ugh.
but yeah.
I'd heard about that movie and that story. I didn't know how prolific he was, so
Hmm.
I was intrigued to watch that. I want to go see it for sure.
It's a pretty good movie. It's on Netflix, I want to say. Um, one of the
Okay.
streaming things.
Yeah.
But I also watched Coco for the first time.
Oh, I haven't seen that
Um,
yet. Yeah, I need to
it's
see it.
so good. It's so sweet. It's about Day of the Dead, obviously, and music. Great movie. I don't want to say anything else about it because I went in surprisingly blind considering how many years ago it came out, but
Yeah.
it's really, really fantastic. Um,
Cool.
Also, I finished The Penguin last night, the finale
Nice.
of last night, so it's all done for me. What a fucking fantastic show. I'm excited to talk about it. I think it'll be our next episode. Um, it's gonna be a good one. It's a good show, and
Ooh, doggy.
boy, it'll make you mad at some parts too. It's
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say I don't want to ruin the show for you, so I'll wait until the episode to talk
Okay.
about it.
Good.
I
Good.
also filled a big blind spot in my film viewing history and watched 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, you hadn't seen it.
Um, I had never seen it before. It incredibly well made. I think
Yes.
um I want to like read more about it because there were some parts of it that didn't totally click for me, but it's a very old film as well. But it's such a masterpiece in terms of craft. And
Oh, it's
there's some
beautiful.
I was just the scene where he's like walking on the little, gravity orbit thing with the little Velcro shoes.
Yeah.
And I'm like I'm sure they just spliced two shots together to make it work, but oh, it was
Nope.
actually just no.
It's like I think if I remember right, it's like a whole wheel that is like
Uh-huh.
turning continuously
Okay.
and he's just kind of running in place. I could
Yeah.
be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is a very practical effect.
Okay. I'm sure it is. It just like I was looking for where it was moving or the camera was moving, and they must have timed it so perfectly that it was imperceptible. But
Yeah.
it's so impressive. Um, of course it is. Like everybody knows this. But
It's such a great film. It's so good.
yeah, I also like I think I started a little too late at night, so at the end when shit gets really crazy, I was also getting very tired and I was like wait, what? Wait, because I was thinking I was missing things because he would be like standing there looking at another version and then the
Hmm.
previous version would disappear and I'm like, "Wait, did I doze off? Where'd he go?" And he's like, "No, he's just gone now."
Yeah. My God, it's full of stars.
Yeah. It was it's very wild though. I did like it a lot. And I didn't know this. It shifts protagonists like halfway through. We're like following one guy for the first half of the movie, and then nope, not anymore. New people now.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in years. I need to rewatch that. It's
Yeah,
a
but
masterpiece for a reason.
yes. I also went to see Honora, which I thought was very, very good. It
Cool.
follows a sex worker who falls in love with and gets married to um, the son of a Russian oligarch who she was, um, you know, working for as a sex worker.
Hmm.
And then his family finds out that they did this, and shit kind of goes off the rails very quickly for them. It was very
Cool.
entertaining. I liked it. I also started watching the anime Dandadan on Netflix.
Hmm.
Um, it's cool. It's a little bit pervy, um, in terms of like how the characters are drawn. They do that
Yeah. Fan
sometimes.
servicey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. But other than that, it's very neat. There's like aliens and ancient magic at the same time. Um,
Cool.
and it's fun. I like it. And
Maybe
then
I'll check it
last but
out.
not least, the new season of Arcane has started. I've watched the first act. It's incredible, man.
I would expect nothing less.
Yeah. They're taking like even more chances with the animation and pushing the boundary even further than they did in season one. Um, it's great. Like I'm so excited for
Awesome.
the rest of the season, and I'm so excited to talk about it on this show in a little bit. But that's it. That's
Yeah.
that's all I've been watching. All of those things. I talked for like 15 minutes again. Um,
That's okay. You've been watching lots of stuff.
yeah. But let's see. So looking ahead, that's gonna do it for us this week. Hopefully, I have my PC back for next recording. But I think the plan for the rest of the year is going to be The Penguin,
I
Gladiator
think so.
2, and then, depending on timing, probably Arcane Season
Hmm.
2, and that will probably be the last episode of 2024. Um,
Probably at
but
this point. We'll see.
yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We love
Hmm.
making this show, and we hope you enjoy listening to it. We love talking about these kinds of topics, and obviously we're passionate about it. Episode 98, so we're gonna keep
Yep.
going. But thank you all so much again for listening. If you like the episode, please, leave a review, like, subscribe, share with a friend if you think that they'll
Hmm.
enjoy our discussions. But yeah, until next episode, Dylan, where can people follow you online?
You can follow me on Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at DDayMovies, on YouTube at DDayMovies. You can follow us both here at Play Pause Rewind, both on YouTube and your podcast platform of choice, as well as our second channel, Play Pause Rewind Videos, where we do stuff that is not the podcast. Niles, what about you? Where can people find you online?
On Instagram at Niall Got No Styles, at least for now.
Yeah. Alrighty, and with that, we will see you guys next time to talk about the Penguin. Have a good one, guys. Bye.
Bye.